Hello, everyone. It's your favorite person back um, with another episode of Mishnah, of going through this Ateret Shlomo. As you can see, my copy had a bit of a bunny attack. This is kind of a this is like a condensed version and more organized version of the stream that I did, which is kind of how I kind of want to do things moving forward. Where it's like I stream myself to kind of give myself a reason to like actually sit down and like actually do like the hishtadlut of like the learning and like looking things up and if understanding what words mean this and that and piecing together kind of what the what I'm learning. Um, and then once I kind of sleep on it, think about it, meditate on it, then I can come more formally in a video and actually formulate my thoughts and teach it. Or I guess for me, it's more of like reinforcing it by way of teaching to anyone who's willing to listen. Which I mean, the video, the first video got like 29 views, which is like more than I ever thought I would ever get for anything like this, which is kind of cool. Um, but again, I mean, the main like the main reason why I'm doing this is to like reinforce my own learning and kind of also like record my journey along the way. Um, I think a lot of times I have trouble kind of seeing like the progress that I've made across the different projects that I've had, etc. And I'm always just like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I kind of want to like build a chain of like episodes to be like, oh wow, okay, like you've actually come pretty far. Because my hope is that as I keep learning, that I'll have to look up things less often. That I'll be able to just more intuitively understand what the text is saying, etc. So without further ado, I wanna. This episode is gonna be a little bit shorter. This is the second klal of Dalche HaMishnah Uklalotea, which is like again the way of Mishnah and its general principles. We went over Klal Aleph last episode, and we're gonna go over Klal Bet. There's a total of 28 klalot um, that we have to go over, and this is from the sefer called Etz Chaim that was written by Rabbi Yaakov Hagiz, who was a Turkish rabbi that was one of the few rabbis that were very was he Turkish or was he Italian? Let's see. Let's see. He was born in Morocco, but he really spent some time in Livorno, spent some time in Yerushalayim, and then eventually made his way to um, Constantinople, where he published his book Lechem HaPanim. And he was one of the main people who were against the Shabtai Tzvi, who really rocked the Jewish world as like a false Mashiach, which was like, was a very traumatizing event for the Jewish people. Um, and it's cool to see. I mean, I'm also Moroccan, so like it's always cool to see like, some of the famous Rabbanim of Morocco that I feel like everyone kind of thinks of. Um, of course, the Baba Sali, the the Ochem Kadosh, Arav Pinto. Like, there's like some really big names, and so it's cool to see that like really there's so many. Like, there's been such a rich and long history of great rabbis and tzaddikim coming from Morocco. So let's just jump into it. Klal Bet, Katav Arash, which is Arash. I had to like look this up. I was like, it's like very generic. Like Harav Shimshon, Harav Shimon, and this, but it's actually it's actually Harav Shimshon ben Avraham from Shantz, uh, which is in France. He was one of the Talmudists. I mean, he also goes by the Rashba. So that's just like okay, like that. I know the Rashba, so this is the first time encountering it being written as the Rosh. Kol hecha de tane hakol, and this is kind of building off of the last klal. Every place where it teaches in the Mishnah hakol ledrasha, it's meant to be some kind of exposition. It's really meant to be expanding and kind of like theorizing about an idea. Kilomar, which is to say, le'atuye davar shelo haya b'mashma. It's to include something that was not implied already. We'll see some. We'll see some. We'll see some examples here. Okay. Ve'kulhu maite lehu b'mashmata kemaite da'achin, and all of them are brought in in the sugya in the first sugya of Masechet Archin. What does it teach? Kegon, such as, for example, Kol Shochtin. These are the people that if they shecht an animal, it's as long as they follow the proper procedure of shechting the animal, it's kosher. Talking about a Jew. What is it coming to include? La'tuye mumar ochel nevelot leteavon v'achim harbe. Well, it's meant to include an apostate who eats nevelot, which is like things that are not, if a cow like died from a disease in the middle of the field or something, or if like it wasn't properly shechted. It's a kosher animal, but it wasn't properly shechted. So it's treif, right? It's a nevela, and he eats those a lot, and others. And an important distinction is leteavon. He does it out of appetite, not out of survival, not a survivorship, not out of no. He's doing it because he's like, I feel like eating. I'm just gonna like eat from. I'm just gonna go ahead and like shoot a cow in the head and eat from the cow. Um, but if this person is one Jewish, and two they shecht it in a proper way with full shchita, they full melicha, like they draw out all the blood and everything. They separate all of the they separate the gid and asher and this and that, da da da. It's fine according to this. I don't know how much you would want to trust someone like that, but that's what it's bringing up here. Okay. אבל מילת כל zimnin de daresh mine וזמנין de lo daresh. So we talked about, okay, sometimes we're trying to expand on an idea, right? And sometimes we aren't. We give an example of where we're expanding an idea. We're exploring an idea, right? We're talking about shchita here, right? We're talking about a Jewish person doing shchita. What certain things do they have? It's like, what is it saying? Like, these are the people that can become shochet, like that can kosherly shecht an animal, and you can eat from that person's meat. From there, we're doing a drasha there. We're expanding on this idea of what does kol mean, right? However, sometimes we don't do that. So and he finishes. This is Rashba is finishing what he's saying. Always milat kol lo drashinan. That whenever it says the word milat kol, we it's not to expound by it. It's not meant for some kind of exposition. לרבויה ואותם שמדקדק בהם לאו מלישנה ומשמעות דכל דרש אלא מתוך המשנה. That that we're not we cannot like extract from it exactitudes of from its language and its meaning and this and that, right? That we do when we do a drasha. Rather, it's from other aspects of the Mishnah that we draw it from. What's an example of this? Kegon, for example, בפרק כמה דפסחים, in the first פרק of פסחים, כל מקום שאין מכניסים בו חמץ, אין צריך בדיקה. I think that's it, yeah. כל מקום שאין מכניסים בו חמץ, אין צריך בדיקה. Any place that there's no way for chametz to get into, it does not need bdika. Yeah, you don't have to you do not have to do biur chametz, bdika chametz, the whole thing, right? And so we have this kol, and then we have okay, kol da 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 da. All of this, you don't have to do this. Now we can do a drasha on this. For example, what is one of the drashas? It says the dalshina mine that we can expose from this. We can extract from this le'atuye to include chorei abayit ha'elyonim, like the upper holes of a house. I guess maybe houses were not built so great back in the day. Probably not. And like I guess they were like in the upper parts of a house there were holes, and you don't have to look up there for chametz, right? So the question is, do we extract that addition? This drasha of like this includes the upper holes of a house. Are we extracting that from the mirakol, or are we extracting it from the other words of the Mishnah? Right? Okay, וכולו, לפי, כאז שכל אותו הדיבור מיותר ולא מדיבת כל דרש. Meaning that there might be some extra word that's included in the text of the Mishnah, and it's not the word kol. Maybe you can do some exposition on the word bo, right? Shen machnisim bo, or the what is it? Makom. I don't know. I mean, like, I guess it's trying to say that it's really not about the word kol, right? We're not including this. We're not adding on this part about not having to check the other parts of the house. It's not adding it, but it's kind of like, how can we apply this in a really applicable way, right? Like, for example, like, how do we, like, if you, let's say, use an item during the week, like a hammer that's used to crack nuts, is that considered muktzeh on Shabbat? Like, meaning, like, can you not move it? Can you not pick up that hammer and then continue to crack nuts on Shabbat, right? And if that's your nut cracking hammer, it's not muktzeh. You can absolutely use it on Shabbat. That's from a Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat. So, where's it Masechet Eruvin? I think it's Shabbat. Masechet Shabbat. I think it's Perek Chet. But rather, it's deriving from other aspects of the text, not necessarily from the word kol. Which is fascinating here. So let's try to, like, even though this is a much shorter klal than the first one, it's a lot less intuitive. This is what I was saying in the stream. So let's kind of walk through this. The Rashba is saying that sometimes we can do a drasha on the word kol when it's brought up in the Mishnah. Sometimes we can't, or sometimes we don't. Sometimes we can, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I should say we can or can't. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But then he says, always, the le'olam, milat kol lo darshinan. Leraboye. We cannot have it to include things. We cannot use the word kol to include more things. And I feel like this kind of builds off of kind of the first klal, which is like we can't use the milah kol to actually extract the halacha in terms of the Tanaim. In terms of the Amorim, yes we do. But here it's adding on that we can't even use it to include things, according to the Rashba. I don't know if this is what I don't know if this is fully accepted by everyone. Um, but according to the Rashba, who's one of the Balei Tosfot, he's like, like who's gonna argue with him? Um, if he says that even though sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, the leolam, we do not daresh from the word kol in order to include something in regards to its meaning and in regards to its language. Um, and it gave an example for interestingly enough, like he initially gave an example of like an example that we did use it as a drasha. That in the first sugya of Masechet Alchin, when we say kol shochtin, when we say these are the people that if they shecht an animal, it's kosher. It's saying that kol is coming to include right because there's nothing hakol shochtin. Like I don't really think there's. It's like what else can we extrapolate from that? Like what other word can we extrapolate from that it's meant to include an apostate who eats nevelot in because they're hungry or because they just feel like eating it a ton, right? Like there, it's not necessarily. It doesn't make a lot like it wouldn't make sense to use anything else. But then the Rashba is saying, I guess it would mean here maybe like generally speaking, but then it'll be mikol makom. I don't know because delala means always, always. So I don't know. Maybe someone could help me out in the comments here that to kind of clarify what the Rashba is really getting at here because he gave an example which we did tarish from the word kol in a Mishnah in the first sugya of Achim, but then he says no, we actually don't, and then he gives an example of a time where it's not. For example, kol makom she'en machnisim bo chametz en tzarich bdika, which is in the first chapter of Masechet Pesachim. It's a bit confusing, but I think what I'm going to take out of this is that when we run into the word kol in a Mishnah, one, we're not going to necessarily extract from it any halachot. Two, we're also not going to use it to include anything. We're not going to use the word hakol strictly to include anything. Um, you cannot use it for any form of ribui, which means to include a case. Interesting. So we'll leave it there. I know this episode is a little bit shorter, which is honestly I'm cool with that. Um, Definitely a more harder to navigate klal here, and I might just run it by one of my friends at the Koilo and be like, "Hey, could you like explain this idea to me, um, and see if I'm getting something wrong here?" So, and trying to understand, okay, like why is he saying in the beginning that you can, and then gives an example of it, and then says actually you sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and then and then his last statement of the Rashba is like you actually can't. It's you never daresh from the word kol, which just feels like just a big like intellectual roller coaster, um, but which is fascinating. We'll leave it there. Um, for next we're gonna continue this series, and we're gonna do the next one is gonna be the next live stream is gonna be it's gonna be about Klal Gimel. Um, there's another work here that I have. It's a collection of actually my great great grandfather's works from Morocco. Um, he was a dayan. He served on the Beit Din of Mogador, which is modern-day Suera, which is a port city in Morocco. And lived the last 4 years of his life in Israel. And he was also the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Ketetora, um, which is a big yeshiva in Suera. He also served as a I don't know if he was the I think he served as a teacher at a major yeshiva in Casablanca as well. Um, this is a collection of his works, and I wanted to just I don't know like I've been reading it here and there, and it's like really good stuff, and it's like really complex stuff too, which is like really cool. And so maybe I'll make that like a different series. You know, maybe one day I'll do Mishnah, one day I'll do Sasanuchi, which is the first collection of which is the first work in this collection. It's a collection of drushas that he gives, a collection of lectures that he's given. He first published when he was 25 years old, 20 or 25 years old. So, you know, it's people back then really got to living a lot faster than we do nowadays, which is cool. So, anyways, thank you so much for anyone that watched. Anyone that watches or doesn't watch, I'm cool with either one. And if anyone can get through this and like is like, okay, I actually get what's going on here and can explain it to me in the comments, I'd be more than happy to read that. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to say, Boch Adonai Olam, Amen, Amen.